but like I went to the college of engineering when I went through college, and one of the things about the college of engineering was this is like in 2000-ish, 2003, 2001 to 2003 or something like that, and they hadn't quite figured out, like, MIS wasn't really, it was like information systems, it wasn't yet like management information systems. Anyway, so like all the engineers who were going to be like mechanical engineers and electrical engineers and computer engineers, whatever, all the engineers went to the same school as all the people that were like MIS. So we had all the same electives and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, I can take any of these electives. So the electives I decided to take were all the electrical engineers electives.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, listen, I was like, the point of being in school is I take classes. It's not like I get this stupid white thing. I'm going to get rid of that. There we go. I was like, the point of being in school is like, if I'm paying for it, I feel the point should be I get to take classes that I'm actually interested in. And I was like, listen, I want to do something with computers as my profession. I don't really know what it was because I didn't know what it was back then. But I was like, but if I have to take classes, if you're forcing me to take classes to fill in electives just to get whatever 128 credit hours or whatever, I was like, and it's my choice amongst these. I was like, I'm going to take these that are actually interesting, which is like building integrated circuits, programming digital devices and stuff like that.
Yes, I did those as well because my bachelor's was in electronics.
Oh,
so I did that, and but I did take some of the electrical engineering electives, like transmission theory and things like that, right?
Yeah.
You know, like the high power stuff, right? We did some of that as well. But yeah, it was fun. I liked it.
Dude, that stuff is a lot of fun, man. Mm-hmm. Like, again, I don't use it at all in my day-to-day job, but that stuff was super fun when I was in it because you would build you have to learn like the logic gate lanlanguage and stuff like that. You know, the little symbols.
NAND gates and AND gates.
Yeah. The OR gates and NOR gates and stuff like that.
You'd build those little bread box, like little, what would they call them? Little circuit boards from Radio Shack.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that stuff doesn't exist anymore.
No, I know.
You can't just you used to be able to walk into a Radio Shack and get the resistors or whatever, or what's the ones where electricity can only move in one direction? I can't remember.
Diodes.
Diodes.
Yeah. I remember all of that stuff, man.
No, are they that? No,
Yeah,
diodes are the one that store the electricity, aren't they?
No, that's capacitors.
Oh, it's capacitors.
Yeah. No, all of that stuff is gone now. I mean,
it's gone.
I remember working with actual transistors, right? Like the three legs of a transistor, you know, the top rail, bottom rail.
Yeah.
Now you've got millions of those on a chip.
Right. Yes.
So it's all that's all fun stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I was interested in that stuff, so I was like, well, I'll take classes to learn that stuff. But like that, I mean, like that's the point of college. There should be a percentage of it that's like you have to learn this stuff because like that's what you'll be expected to do in the industry. But there should be a certain amount of freedom to be like, just take different things and figure out what you like. You know, I mean, I went to state colleges for Florida State colleges. But there was like a very slim amount of classes that I could just do that for fun. And it wasn't until I got to you have to take about 2 years worth of like lower level classes to get your AA degree. And then you go on, when you actually go on to your actual college you're going to go to, you have a little bit of wiggle room to take the lower level electives that you want to take that are interesting. But then when you get into the upper level electives of the actual College of Engineering, like for me, like you have to take the tracks that they but like I always felt it was a business when I was in college because I was like, oh wait, I have to take whatever like electrical engineering 1, even though I don't care at all about electrical engineering, before I can take whatever applied business systems or whatever we have, like, you know, that we're doing projects we have to like actually code a system with like SQL and .NET and whatever. I can't remember what it was, but like the point was I take a bunch of BS electives that had nothing to do with, you know, system. I was like, I don't want to take these classes. You're making me take these classes because I want to get an information systems or whatever, management information systems degree. So I had to go through. But yeah, the lower level electives like that were really cool, you know.
I didn't like having to take the humanities ones. Like we had to do sociology 1.
Yeah, you do, yeah.
You know, and psychology and all that. I mean, they were okay. It was easy material to pass, but I didn't enjoy it.
Oh, I enjoyed all those classes.
I enjoyed material science when we were really looking at those PNP junctions and all that stuff. That was a lot of fun.
I like all those kind of classes. Much like the Agile certifications, though, they really depend on your instructor. That is the issue. Like, I will tell you right now, I'm not gonna. We're gonna hold to our working agreement, and I'm not gonna blast anyone by name, but. Ooh, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to.
Guns blazing.
My finger guns are ready to go, man. Like, I had an instructor in. I don't remember. It was a lower level elective that everyone had to take. It was like a databases class, like intro to databases class. I don't remember what the name of the class was, but the instructor came in the first day. He's like, "Hey, I'm a big shot DBA, and I teach in my off time or whatever. And my job is just to teach you about the theory of databases. I'm not here to teach you SQL. I'm not going to teach you any SQL." And then every single exercise in the class had to do with writing against the example database, writing SQL statements, and then sending him the SQL statements to show that I know SQL. I was like, dude, what kind of class is this?
Yeah, that's nuts. He's not going to teach you, but that's a requirement.
It was terrible. He was a terrible instructor. Absolutely terrible. He was terrible. Like, he knew SQL very well, obviously.
Sure,
but he was terrible at telling me the theories behind. And now that I know SQL and I understand, because I've actually like worked in the field with actual DBAs who understand indexes and understand the memory utilization and understand third normal form and other standardization of databases, how rational databases should, and then like you have NoSQL databases and stuff that he didn't even go into in that class. Now that I understand a bunch of stuff, I'm like, oh, he was a terrible instructor. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right. It's the instructor that can make or break classes like that. Yeah, I remember those days as well. Having to look at, this is before really everything was available on the internet even, right? So to look at those ANSI books for SQL, because there were different flavors of SQL, right? The Transact SQL and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I feel like we're gravitating towards career progression at this point, because
Sure,
I mean, I knew when I was in college, I knew that I wanted to do something in, like, I was always very good with computers, like as a teenager, back in the day, working on my 386s and 486s back in the day, and like my interest was in, I mean, it was kind of both in hardware and software, but hardware was the gateway for me to get into the career progression. I kind of wish that I should reach out to some. Now I'm talking about it out loud. I don't know. I might cut this portion out. I don't know if I'm going to leave this portion in, but like, I should reach out to some of the people. I'm still in contact. Like, they're on like LinkedIn and stuff like that. I should reach out to some of the people that were there when I started my career, like some of my first supervisors and stuff like that. Because it would be cool to have them on to talk about, like, where they were when I started. Because I started in like the mid 2000s. I started my actual career. I mean, I was in the Air Force before that, from like the late 90s. So like I actually started working before that.
Right.
But as far as like career, like entry into the career field of like where we're talking about now on the podcast, mid 2000s, right? In reality. And it would be cool because all the people that I entered the workforce with, like, they got their start in like the .com era,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, mine was similar. Like, mine started in hardware, basically. And software as such was really firmware. So you would program in assembler, right? None of these nice languages. It was pretty terse. So I remember reams and reams of paper, because you printed stuff out to try and debug things and staying up nights, whatever. But that was a means to an end, because hardware was fun to me. The project, like some of the projects we worked on were things like the early heartbeat monitors, and they were pretty big. But it was the firmware in them that was the headache, not just the hardware. But then the data analytics came in. We gather all this data, and then we want to do something with it. That was the writing of software in like Fortran, I think it was, back in the day, and Pascal. So
I'd like to get to. There's another guy that I know in the area who is he's an old school RPG programmer. He'd be a real riot to have on. He's a funny guy.
I
Man.
remember RPG 3, RPG 2.
Oh my God! You know, the funny thing about those systems is people companies that use them, like they're married to them. They're never going to get off of them.
Sure.
And every single company that uses RPG is like, oh, one day, maybe one day we won't be on RPG. No, that day will never come. You'll be on that system forever. But the thing about RPG that I learned early in my career was, like, you're not going to crash the IBM Series I. It's just going to run super slow forever until it processes everything, all the garbage that you're sending it. And that's the reason why people run those mainframes. You know, they're not called mainframes anymore for the purposes of like sounding archaic or whatever. But like the companies that run those, this is in my experience, is a bunch of trucking companies and logistics companies that run the like 3PLs and stuff that run the Series I. They basically need a database at the heart of the system that like will never go down. It'll just run 24. Like nuclear apocalypse happens and the Series I is still running.
There's quite a lot of organizations still using those machines today. I mean, insurance companies, for instance.
Sure, yeah.
They're using mainframes still.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're not called mainframes anymore because it's not vogue to say that. So,
yeah, you're right.
They may be called mini computers or something.
You're 100% right. That's exactly why they don't call them.
They're still the size of big refrigerators.
Oh man, they're pretty slim. I mean, they're about the size of a double rack mount. The new 400s. Yeah, I worked with them for years. Green screens for life.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes. This has nothing to do with. This is like our career progression has to get like past the 90s now.
That's true. That's true.
But like I think no one, like if anyone survived these 12 minutes to get to this point, we should probably pivot to talk about. So like I probably could cut everything we talked about. You know what I should do? I should cut right now. And begin the video here, and then all the stuff we were talking about, I can put it at the end.
Yeah, sure. I'm fine with that.
Oh man, or maybe I'll cut it as a video by itself and like Brian and Om talk about nonsense for 15 minutes and 56 seconds. I will never forget.
Don't forget the subscribe button.
I will never forget. I'll never forget that 15 minutes and 56 seconds. Well, that's enough of being weird. So for somebody who's entering the workforce now, or somebody who has like maybe 2-3 years they've been a Scrum Master or something like that, and they want to get to the point of being an Agile coach, that's where I would like to start and talk about. Yeah, because I feel, especially for I see people all the time like on LinkedIn and stuff like that. I see people all the time looking for an entrance into the field, and I'm not like, I'm at a point now in my career where like I'm so far from entering into the workforce for the first time that I'm like I'm not really sure I can even give advice anymore, because I can't even see the starting line anymore. You know what I mean?
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
I don't know. Where would you start with someone who's like, oh, hey, I want to be a Scrum Master for the first time or whatever, you know?
So before we get into that, I just want to put some stats out.
Okay.
So if you looked for the phrase Agile Coach about 2018 in LinkedIn, you just search for that.
Yeah. You
had about 12,000 hits, right? Just take that face value. If you do that today, that number is around 300,000. I'm rounding up a little. It's 280 something. But anyway, my point is it has gone up dramatically. Mm-hmm. Everybody's now an Agile coach. And I think part of that is also, it's just the whole trending, you know, it's the market trend now.
Right.
But let's just go back to this. Somebody who wants to enter the field as opposed to somebody who is in the field with maybe a year or two of experience as a Scrum Master. Those are slightly different. And that's because somebody wants to enter the field as an Agile coach might be a bit of a tall order, because the word coach implies that you can perform at a level that is beyond just simply instructing teams how to do things process-wise, right?
Yeah.
You're actually trying to make sure that the teams figure out for themselves or individuals, where their limitations are, and then they find the solutions. To a certain degree, a coach acts as a mirror, right? So for somebody new coming into the field, that might be a bit too much to take on.
Yeah.
They might be better off just serving the team as a team coach, essentially a Scrum Master, because Scrum Masters are team coaches. They're process coaches as well, right? So once you have that under your belt, you can now look at that and say, what am I doing every day? I'm guiding the teams, or my team. Hopefully you don't have too many teams.
Yeah.
So then from there, the approach one might take could be, well, let me just step off a little bit and let people find their own path, right? But I'm going to put guardrails around that so they don't go completely off the beaten path. So, that I think is that moment where you can understand that people can come up with their own solutions given the autonomy to do so.
Yeah.
So that's where it kind of the aha moment begins there, right? And then you realize that your way, what you're proposing or suggesting process-wise, isn't the only way.
Yeah.
It may not be the best way for that team. It might be great for another team. So for them to find their own path, excellent. If you can do that, you're already an agile coach.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that term, by the way, agile coach, it spans so much. Right? Are you an agile coach of a team? Are you an agile coach of a group of teams? A scrum of scrums?
I feel attacked right now. I want to jump on this one because that was my thing. I was like, I want to be that's why I left a very stable job. I was like, I want to be this is something very alluring to me. I want to be an agile coach. I have a lot of experience in the field. I've been doing this for 15, 16 years or whatever. I was like, I feel I got a lot to contribute in this role. And I started doing it, and I started thinking to myself, I was like, this sucks. This is you're basically the person that has observed and experienced better ways of doing things, and you're trying to express to people, hey, I know a better way to do what we're trying to do. Why don't we do whatever? But the way to come across to do that is to me, to my personality, it's difficult because you need to express that in questions and bring people to the answer. You need to bring people to the answer through the method in which you question what they're doing and the method in which you build consensus to say, hey, let's try. What do you think about? How do you think we should go about getting here? And prompting people to try things that to be the correct path, but they need to feel like they naturally are getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So I think, that whole mindset of experimentation, that is key.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a very different paradigm than somebody coming in saying, I've seen this work before in a certain way, and I'm going to say, do it that way here. It won't work necessarily because this is a different team.
Yeah.
Different dynamics, different DNA, organization's different, culture's different. I mean, there's more different here than same, right? So letting people find the solution themselves and not questioning whether that solution is the right solution or not. That's part of it. And then the other bigger part is, what if it is not the right solution, that they deem it's not the right solution? So that's where the experimentation comes in. Time box it and say, let's try this. Yeah. If it works, great, you found the answer. If it doesn't work, then no big deal. Let's try something else. Let's pivot.
Dude, I think I gotta stop you because I think for someone, so to take it back to our goal in the conversation, I think that's, I'm so glad we had these. I think somebody entering the workforce for the first time, or even somebody who's only got 2 years in the workforce, or whatever, who's doing this, maybe they've been a team coach for 2 years, they would have a difficult time challenging to say, okay, maybe we don't look like we're being as successful as we could, but give the team a little bandwidth, give the team a little leeway to figure things out and develop on their own, and we will find the proper way of doing it. As a first time, like I can only imagine if you were in the workforce like 18 months, it's like, hey Brian, I know you only been here, like I know it's like your first project or whatever, and I'm your first supervisor or whatever in the corporate workforce or whatever, but like your team needs to deliver faster, and your team needs to, like, it's things that you will get. Even I get, 20 years. Oh, your team, we need to talk about that velocity. It needs to be faster. I'm like, no, we don't need to talk about velocity.
Right.
Because velocity is meaningless. So
this is the difference between somebody like you with years of experience than somebody who just came in 18 months, 2 years. Their focus is on those metrics because that's what they learned in training. That's what they've practiced, right?
Yeah.
So of course they're going to focus on improving those numbers, right? And once they get to beyond that, many years possibly, right? Beyond that, they'll realize that these vanity metrics don't mean a thing.
Yeah.
You could knock it out of the park with 100 times, the story points, and you're still not delivering value. So that mind shift of numbers to delivering value, and who are you actually dealing with? Are you dealing with the intermediaries, or are you dealing with people that actually care about the value that you're delivering? So that should be your target. Those kinds of shifts take time.
Yeah.
And they need to take time, I think, because it lets you mature over time, right? Well, School of Hard Knocks, basically.
Can we shortcut that? Like for people who are, let's say somebody on the internet who's like got like 18 months in as a Scrum Master, and they're just getting beat down. And I mean, they're like, oh, your team needs to deliver faster and faster. Somebody who works for, I kept saying this. I know I'm terrible for like starting an idea and then cutting it off and be like, here's a better idea. Let's say you started a company and your team is delivering stable results, and your management's like, oh no, they need to deliver faster and more and faster and faster every single sprint. Like, I know, like I would challenge my management all the time, but like, look, I don't care about them delivering more and more and more and more every single sprint over and over and over. I care about them delivering a stable level every single sprint over sprint. And then if you want to grow the program and deliver more, we'll hire another team and bring on another Scrum Master, and we'll basically, you'll double, triple your velocity. Who knows what it is? But the point is, our team who's delivering can get more efficient based on certain things. But if we're going to talk about metrics, let's talk about the stability of your delivery mechanism, which is your team producing work, putting it in production, et cetera, et cetera. The best I always coach people to look for is let that be stable.
I agree. And also, let's not forget the quality, right? So let it be stable and of high quality, because when you're rushing, your quality is going to be compromised. So that would be perhaps you're offering back to them, right? Yeah, we can do more. We can do 10% more next sprint.
Right.
But are you ready to, take on slightly degraded output?
I'm glad you brought that up because I would have completely forgotten to bring that up. I mean, that's like the thing about people entering the workforce, or people who are, in that 0 to 3 year experience band. I think carefully about what I want to say here, because I think it's super important. I think about what I want to say here because I think it's really important to say, like, even I, especially with everyone being out of the office, without people being face to face for the last year or whatever it's been, I feel like I thought about this the other day. I feel that my skills at confronting people when they have poor opinions, those skills have degraded, I think. Just by not being in conflict with people so often on a regular basis. Like in the role of the Scrum Master, I have this, and like I'm gonna touch on this and then escape super quickly because I don't want to dig in too much with this. The role of the Scrum Master, specifically the Scrum Master, like you're like, the Scrum Master is in charge of knocking down impediments. So we can go to you whenever we have the slightest problem or whatever, and we just kind of pin it on the Scrum Master to figure it out or whatever. but like, not every time is that the Scrum Master's responsibility.
So I think what you've touched on is another one of those nuances between somebody who's just freshly into the field a year or two versus somebody who's been doing it for a while. Because you're right. The former, they will say, yeah, the Scrum Master's role is to knock down impediments.
Right.
The latter might say, the Scrum Master's role is for the team to figure out a way to get rid of their own impediments, right? Because if I'm not around, I want them to be self-sufficient.
I was just going to say, like, one of the things I learned with one of my teams at a large company, this was a while ago, one of my teams at a large company, like the first thing I would lead with when they would tell me a problem is, what have you done to try to knock the problem down? You know, because listen, I can take the problem on, and I have no problem having 87 things on my checklist of things to do today. Like, I have no problem being overloaded with things because I'll reach out in the organization. Not like I'm. Again, I have no problem taking things on myself as my personal responsibility to deal with. However, before I take things off of you to relieve you of the responsibility of that, I want to know if you've at least tried to do it, because you can have some people on your team that like they haven't tried to deal with it themselves. That's a problem.
It is. It really is. And I think the bigger picture being that, you know, the team should be cross-functional, right? And to a certain degree, you know, self-organizing and whatnot. So you're right to ask the question, what have you tried, right? Yeah. To the person who is raising the impediment. But if this is happening in the form of let's say a daily stand-up or something like that, and they say they've tried something else, and to no avail, my next question might be, okay, team, who else can help with this? Because maybe somebody else on the team can help with this, right? And why that's important is because if that sort of problem happens again, they will not even be escalated. They will simply collaborate and solve it themselves. Right. And that's what you want, rather than, I've got this, right? I'm the Scrum Master, I've got this. Yes. Like, to your point, you can take a bunch of things. Your team's not going to improve. That's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want, like, that's my thing as a Scrum Master, is that, like, you learn these things as a coach. There's a thing in coaching where you have to, I can't remember. I think this thing was in the ICP coaching track that we went through, that we went to the class about, which was you have to decide. Actually, it might not have been. Now that I think about it, you have to decide when you're going to interject as a coach. Like if you're in a daily stand-up or whatever, some other meeting or whatever, you have to decide if you're going to interrupt and make it a coaching moment, or if you're going to stay out of it, and then later on you're going to come in and make do a one-on-one with whoever, or and make it a coaching moment. Like when to interject as a coach and to step into the conversation. That's you can't really even teach. Like, when's the best time? Like, I personally like to stay out of almost anything where there's a group involved, and then I like to take people off one-on-one after things are over, even if it's a disaster. I'm kind of okay letting the disaster resolve itself, and then coming in after and be like, hey, do you understand why this was a disaster? What could you have done? Why do you think it was a disaster? What do you think you could have done better? What can we do in the future? And do it one-on-one. Like, other people might disagree with me and have different opinions or whatever, and which are perfectly legitimate. I could be on both sides of this argument. Personally, I tend to sit out in large group discussions that get heated or get off track or whatever, and I tend to just sit them out and wait until it resolves itself. Because I feel like the takeaway at the end of that means a lot more if you're like, hey, that was really painful. Now that you've had that painful experience, it would be better in the future. I don't want to resolve the pain for you, because then maybe that pain won't hit you as hard.
Yeah, and there's no impetus for you to resolve it yourself next time you do feel the pain, because you see that in real life. So you see that a lot of times teams will simply raise impediments. Mm-hmm. And they won't do anything about them because they think it's not their job, it's the Scrum Master's job. So, and to your point about, when to interject as a coach, the power of staying silent to see if they can solve it themselves. Just pause for a little bit. That's pretty key, I think, in this. Don't rush in.
Oh no, I'm the master of not staying silent. I completely I love being in meetings with people who are project managers by career choice, because they can't stay silent. They're the first person to break in the battle of who can stay silent longer. Like the project manager will be like, who has this? Who's got this? Who's what? Oh, can you follow up with one? Like, no. Let the team figure it out, man.
That's classic command and control.
Stay
can
on
you
mute.
do this? By
Stay
when
on
can
mute.
you do this?
No, just stay on mute and let them figure it
That's
out.
right.
Like the perfect example for me is deployments. Like right now, I'm in the middle of deployments as a Scrum Master, and I'm like, why am I even involved in deployments? Like it's a lead developer talking to other developers, deploying stuff to the next environment. And after the deployment happens, a certain like the testers exercise a certain battery of tests if they're not automated, and they decide that the deployment is good or not. And what do I have to? Why am I even involved? Like I can't do anything. I'm not actually exercising the test. I'm not actually clicking the button to hit deploy or whatever. Like,
no, I mean it should be a non-event, really.
Yeah, you're right.
It's just business as usual.
Yeah, you're right about that. So the career, it's like we started this discussion with a career progression. Let's talk about career progression to become an agile coach. So the three tracks that I see, there probably are more than this, but the three tracks that I see are: you start as a developer and you end up being an agile coach. You start as a QA person, you end up being an agile coach. Or you start as like a project manager, BA. A lot of BAs I work with a lot of project managers that I've worked with have BA in their background somewhere. So maybe there's four tracks, because sometimes project managers by profession turn into agile coaches as well. Not as many as I've seen BAs actually, or QA people, but those are the four tracks that I see.
Yes, I think I want to go back to that phrase, agile coach, right?
Yeah.
Because it encompasses so much. So nowadays you have DevOps coaches, and they're agile coaches, right? They may have had a different track. They could have had a development track, or they could have just come in through the DevOps side of
Never
things.
heard of them. Don't understand. I'm just messing with you.
Goodness. Yeah.
Or am I?
No. We'll never know. So there are different paths to becoming an agile coach. I think the key here is two things. First of all, this is my opinion. As they say, your mileage may vary, but definitely have some experience. That doesn't matter what track you follow. If you're a developer, or BA, project manager, get some experience working at the team level, and then get some training, because if you're just simply relying on your experience and thinking, okay, I can now be a coach, you're missing things.
Right.
The ICP courses are great, but there are others as well, right? Where they're teaching you not necessarily the mechanics of coaching so much as some of these soft skills and the power of staying silent, the power of establishing a coaching contract with the coachee. This is kind of like more one-on-one coaching rather than at the team level, because you can't coach more than one person effectively at the same time. Right. Are you training at that point, right? So definitely get some experience, get some training, and then shadow a coach, right, to get your confidence up.
Oh, I think you just hit on something that a lot of people skip. I think you hit on something a lot of people skip.
And they jump in the deep end, and it is a deep end. Man. Right, because it will scare you if you're a coach and you're in the deep end.
Dude, I don't feel there's a lot of companies out there that let you shadow and consider that valuable. That will impact their profits by letting you shadow. Because what you charge for a Scrum Master and what you charge for an Agile coach are different. They're much different rates. And we're talking about a contracted firm, but if you were a permanent firm, you're going to have somebody at the program level or at the leadership level that's an agile coach. I feel like just for my sorry, I don't even know what camera I'm on right now. Just for the like, if you're a permanent employee agile coach, or let's say you're a executive level or whatever, like maybe you're a COO, or maybe you're chief product, chief marketing. I don't know. If you're up here in the organization and you're going to hire an agile coach, like, you need to hire somebody good to basically be the resource manager for all your Scrum Masters and all your maybe your product guys. I don't know. Maybe they're different chains of command. But like, I feel like you just hit on something that we probably could talk about at
I think
length.
you're right, though, that a company's not going to hire somebody just to shadow somebody, right?
No, yeah.
But that said, if you're a Scrum Master and you have aspirations to become an Agile coach, reach out to an Agile coach and say, hey, would you be my role model? Can I shadow you for a bit? You're not doing this 24/7, right? 40 hours a week or anything. But situationally, if you come across something, you say, hey, as a coach, how would you handle this?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it can be real, live things that you're grappling with at your team level, or it can be hypothetical. But use those opportunities. Most coaches will welcome that.
I will tell you, I went through some of those trainings and stuff like that with the I went through quite a few certifications and trainings with the instructors, like, hey, you can always call on me or whatever, and then I never did. So like, I feel like I probably squandered that potential relationship to be like, hey, here's my concerns of the day, which are like, if someone were to email you or to send you a Slack message or whatever, like, hey, I got this team and they're real bad at playing, or the product owner's not really the real product owner, like, it would be so minor for you to be like, well, here's some questions you can ask to figure out who the real product owner is. And here's some questions you can ask to see if the product owner is willing to approach the situation to improve it or whatever. Like, it's so minor for them to just fire back. It probably wasn't a great decision, or like, there could have been better decisions on my part to engage those people. Even if they would have given me, this is where I really feel like my inner dialogue goes to. Even if they would have given me the same advice that my inner dialogue is telling me, like, hey,
it's affirmation.
Yeah, it's just affirmation.
Yeah.
Like, even if they would have just given me that, like, it would have been worth it, just to have somebody else be like, oh, it's not just me in my own mind thinking about these things and being anxious about it. Somebody else with experiences affirming these things. Like, it's building a network that you can rely on is invaluable for this kind of stuff,
Yeah, absolutely correct. I think that's key. Extend out your network, stay in touch with them, get on their Slack channels, right?
Yeah.
Attend meetups and make contacts.
Yeah. That's a good. Like, we haven't even talked about it. We're talking about career progression. We haven't even talked about networking. I mean, somebody told me once in my career, like 50%. I don't remember who this was. Quite honestly, it could be nonsense. It could be just be like me thinking about things wrong. But somebody told me, like, 50% of you going to get a job, like when you're interviewing or whatever, like trying to get your next position, 50% of it is like your shared experiences and your resume and like what you've done, presenting yourself on paper, basically. And 50% is leveraging your network to get you to a higher elevated position or whatever. And I would say my first, gotta be 10, 12 years of my career, like, I completely ignored my network. I didn't do anything network related. I was just like, I want to look good on paper. I want to be the best on paper or whatever. But like, you could be the best on paper and it will only get you so far. You have to leverage your network. 50% of your opportunities is leveraging your network.
Absolutely. If you're great on paper, you might get noticed, right? Yeah. By the hiring person.
Right.
But through your network, you might actually land an interview. And those two are two different things altogether.
You definitely, right? You absolutely will land. Like, I can't, for people trying to, oh man, this is going to be a clip by itself right here. It's going to be a 30-second clip by itself. Dude, especially for people entering the workforce for the first time, who have their sights set on agile coaching, Okay, maybe you're entering as a BA, maybe you're in some kind of QA position or manual QA position or whatever. Even like I don't see a lot of people landing agile coach roles. I've seen a few people landing at like one or two in my whole career landing agile coach roles who've been developers. Okay, but it's seriously, it's been one or two out of all the agile coaches I've met. Regardless of what it is, like you have to leverage your network to get you to that level. And I would say if you can network with other agile coaches or scrum masters who eventually turn into agile coaches, like start sooner rather than later, you know?
Yeah, and for the purpose of our discussion, I know we're using, scrum masters and agile coaches, but it applies to anything, any role really in Scrum. So a real life example really quickly is I made a connection with somebody through Meetup, and they'd worked in a different part of the business, but not in Agile. Mm-hmm. They want to be a product owner. They saw how product owners work, and they were fascinated by it. But you can't just enter the field without experience.
No.
How do they do that? Well, I started mentoring them, and then after a little while, I put them in touch with 2 different organizations to just simply shadow product owners. Right? Yeah. Not all the time.
Yeah.
And the actual product owners of these 2 companies would decide which events, when, etc. This happened for a few weeks. And long story short, one of the organizations wanted a product owner with 2 years experience. That's what they were putting out. Mm-hmm. And they're actually seriously considering this person. At least they interviewed her. Right? Whereas it would have been a tall order for you to get an interview without any experience.
Yeah.
So I think leveraging your network, I say this just as an example of what can happen. And I didn't really even know this person before the meetup. Mm. So you never know where it's going to get you.
Yeah. I mean, like again, that all goes back to networking. Like it doesn't matter how much you. I mean, obviously, it matters if you know people at a very deep level. It does matter if you know people because then they really trust in you. But even if you only have a passing familiarity, you're better off than just people's names on resumes that you don't even know about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very true.
Yeah, I will say I ignored that for a long time, and it definitely was an impediment to career progression. Yeah.
So before we had these tools like LinkedIn and other social media, it wasn't easy to leverage your network.
Yeah.
But now it is.
Yeah, now it is.
And actually, it's one of the few quote unquote benefits of going through a pandemic is we're remote. We can be on webinars. We can be on these meetups that are in Europe or Australia.
Yeah.
Which you wouldn't have done before, right? So take advantage of it.
Like there's a lot of agilists in Australia, believe it or not. Like I've been watching a lot of people's YouTube channels and stuff that are in Australia. Like the Easy Agile has a whole channel with a ton of videos, and they link to a bunch of other people too out of Australia. I thought about linking out with those guys, but I'm averse to Zoom. Like I can't deal with Zoom. I can't deal with more meetings online.
Yeah.
I'd rather be in person. You know what I mean? But that's not going to happen. I'm not going to. My Australia trip is far off in the future. I can't.
For sure.
I don't know, man. Have you ever interacted with a Scrum Master or an Agile coach that came from a purely developer background?
I have actually met Agile coaches who had been developers in the past. Mm-hmm. They then became a Scrum Master, and then they became an Agile coach.
Oh,
that's been their kind of trajectory or their journey.
Yeah.
Just staying within the software development realm, I think that puts them at a bit of an advantage because they understand the world of software development.
Right.
But there are other places where you can be agile and not have that development background. Is not strictly speaking a prerequisite.
I feel the same way. Like a lot of people talk about this, like, oh, should the Scrum Master be technical? They like to say, should they be technical? Like, what does that mean? Should they be technical? What you mean? Should they be technical? Is Should they have a background as a BA? Should they have a background as a developer? Or should they come in from outside of the development teams where they don't understand any, they can't hang in a technical argument? I'm gonna come across as negative when I say it this way. I don't mean it this way. Like, the fact that they can't hang in a conversation about, like, when the developers start talking about code in a stand-up, or when you start talking about like, releases and pipelines and deployments or whatever, and maybe they kind of zone out a little bit. Like, I've worked with plenty of people in technical teams that can't hang in they can, like, that kind of conversation. When you get into it, like, it's not their area of expertise. They're not really interested in being in the middle of those conversations. They just want to know what the outcome is. They're outcome based. They're not interested in the path to get to the outcome. Okay, like, I work with plenty of people like that. To me, in my career, the people who've come from development have been, like, they're in the minority of people who end up in the Scrum Master position, from my experience.
Well, I think, I'd agree with that. They are in the minority because it's different skill sets.
Yeah.
Right? If you're a developer, those skill sets are different than somebody who works with people effectively, right?
Yeah.
Which is a Scrum Master.
Yeah.
But just to go back to that, a Scrum Master, should they be technical? They should absolutely have the chops for the process side of things, right? Whether it's Scrum, whether it's Kanban, whatever it is that they're actually following framework-wise, but they should be fully aware of that. But outside of that, it will be advantageous if they understood the terms. They don't necessarily have to be experts at it.
Sure.
But they have to understand the terms, which you can get that by watching a few YouTube videos.
Yeah, well, you can also. I feel you can also get that by slowing people down sometimes and asking them, hey, what does this mean? Hey, how can you show me? Can you pull, like, we're all remote, right? So, hey, can you pull up on the screen and show me? Like, we did today. We did a deployment of a pipeline through Azure DevOps for a release. So it's basically one story going into the pipeline. Their pull requests for the changes for the story. You can go see the code. You can actually go look. The nice thing about Azure DevOps, you can actually go look at the code difference. You can look at the before and after, and then you can go trace that to the release in the pipeline, and you can go see on what environments the pipeline goes to. So, like, none of that. I don't feel you need a technical background to follow any of that, as long as you have somebody who can help you, who's patient and can walk you through, hey, here's a change that we did. Here's what the before and after looks like. Even if you can't read code, you can see the red on this side and the green on this side. You understand that a change happened. And then you can look at the chart of, like, this is environment A, environment B, environment C. You can see accepted here, rejected there, or whatever. And I can walk you through at a high level. So at least, even if you're not technical at all, you can understand at a high level, oh, I can click on this release and see what environment it was taken into,
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think they can work with any of the developers or a tech lead to gain that understanding, and it needn't be a very long conversation even, right? But I think they need to take that initiative, because it will help them in the day-to-day.
I see like, a lot of people in Scrum Master roles I see come from a BA background or a QA background. That's the majority that I see.
Yeah, I think for people that are in a BA environment, there are only two sort of major paths that they can go down. One is pursue product ownership, right? And then the other is to gravitate towards being a Scrum Master. It just depends on whether they like to follow process or they like the product side of things. But it does make sense, because a BA does have that analytical skill set to be able to excel as a Scrum Master. They can probably do just as well as a product owner.
Yeah, like, I brought this up recently to somebody. I don't recall who it was. It might have been multiple people. That's why I can't remember. Which was, you kind of need. This is where we get into the realm of, like, the Agile coach. Change my angle. This is probably where we get into the realm of, like, the Agile coach as, like, a resource manager. We talked about this, I think maybe last podcast or two podcasts ago. I can't remember. With the Agile Coach as a resource manager, because you kind of need somebody as a resource manager to figure out what people are interested in. Because I see as a BA, you can go the role as a BA. You can go the role as a Scrum Master. You can go the role of a product owner. Okay, but those are very wildly different skill sets. I mean, if I was a BA with like 3 years experience or something like that, and I was at a company and it was time to move on, move up, you know what I mean, move over, whatever. Maybe I was kind of tired of doing what I was doing, or maybe I'm just looking for a bigger salary, or maybe I'm looking to advance in my career. Whatever it is, I don't really know what it is, but like, are you good with people? Like, is that where your skill set is? Some VAs are very good with people. They're very good interviewing people, doing a deep analysis, doing interviews to figure out how products work, and figure out what the deep business analysis is, to figure out what the future is. Some BAs are very good at a deep technical analysis. You know what I mean? But the key thing, this is probably top of my mind, because I sat down with my chief product owner on a new project that I'm on, and his thing to me was he's like, hey, I got this idea in my mind for the future of the product, where the product could be in a while from now, and he's like, I have a very difficult time getting all that out on paper. And my thing to him was, I was like, well, that's funny that you mentioned that, because I just got off of being a product owner where the company had a million different directions and a million different things they wanted to do, and it was my job to kind of like get everyone and consolidate everyone's vision together on one roadmap, and to reflect that, and to show the priority of, you know, we're going to do a little bit for this stakeholder, and then we're going to do a little bit for this stakeholder, and then we're going to, you know, but this is the direction forward. So I was like, I completely understand. This is me as like a, I don't know, like a program level coach. I don't know how to describe it. It's definitely not a single team Scrum Master. And this is program level. I'm trying to say, you know, you have multiple products under one banner, and this one person is in charge of all these products, and the future of their organization. And I kind of, you know, I empathize with them a lot to say, you know, I get that you have a lot of stuff going on in your brain of where you want to go. And, you know, no one team is going to be able to extrapolate all the different ideas of what you have or where you want to go with the product in the future, because what you're talking about is the product owner cycle. Like, if you're talking about Scrum at scale, all the teams that run in one wheel are kind of like keeping the lights on and moving things forward. The product owner wheel is all about the future, okay? Right. And when these wheels overlap in the Venn diagram of these in the Venn diagram of these two wheels overlapping, there's no way to like yeah, it'd be sweet. Like, that's where like the Scrum at scale model intersects and magic happens. Right. But this product owner wheel is running full time, and I was like, that's the stuff that I need to get out of and put onto a roadmap, and develop a roadmap that all the teams can follow. So I was like, in this position, I'm like, I have a couple teams in this organization, but I was like, listen, man, I was like, I can do the job of a single team. That's no problem. I was like, but while I'm doing the job of a single team, I have to couple with you and help you. Like, that. This is the thing about a Scrum Master. Like, this is like the unwritten rule. Help people get things done. Yep. Right. This is like not a roadmap to helping people getting things done. But I was like, because I have done this before, I can help take that vision out of your head, get it down as high-level features on a roadmap, and then the teams can take those high-level features and absorb them and figure out what that means. And you'll get pulled in as they have questions for you. But all that stuff is super unclear. Like, if I were to try to extrapolate that into a career map, I mean, maybe BAs would get it quickly. Maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. But like, there are some people that have that. The reason I bring all of this up, which is a super sidetrack to whatever we were talking about, which is, there are some people that have that, they can easily enact that vision in their head of what the future looks like, and then there are some people that they just can't. Like, that's not the way they think. They need to, like, this is the thing I'm working on today, you know.
Yeah, you've got your big picture thinkers, and you've got your people down in the weeds.
Yeah.
But as a catalyst, as a coach who is trying to help this person who's got this vision, at that point, you could be a product coach, right? Or you could be an enterprise coach, because what you're doing is helping this person figure out this magic that he's or she's got in their head. Is that aligned with what the organization's values are? Or is this completely way out in left field? Right? Are they thinking we want to do, supersonic flights, but we actually produce marbles, right? These are completely different things. Both viable, but for you as an organization, is that where you need to be, right? So if you're somebody who is going to bring that person back to their organizational values and say, how does this add value to your value chain? How does this help the organization move forward? You're now an enterprise coach. But I wanted to go back really quickly to this term, the agile coach, right? So already we've talked about different.
We got to put a pin in the enterprise. The difference between an enterprise coach and an agile coach. We got to put a pin in that one, because that is a very important distinction in what we're talking about right now. Because the jump from being a normal agile coach to being an enterprise coach, that's a huge jump.
It is a jump, yes, absolutely. But when you're an agile coach, your focus primarily is around the team or teams. And you may evolve past that and look at scaling the teams in some way. You're still an agile coach. Now, you're coaching your clients. You're coaching middle managers. And when I say that, what you're really doing is you're evangelizing agile practices. So it's effectively, you're an agile practice coach. That's what you're doing. And your focus is process, right? And that may even extend to some senior leadership levels. You may train people in foundational Scrum or something like that. From there, to be an enterprise coach, two things need to happen. One is you need to have tons of experience as an agile coach, first of all, right? In different scenarios, having got that under your belt, that kind of molds you, right, going forward. The other thing is, and there is no substitute for this, you need to be able to work with senior leadership, C-level people, and be able to talk to them and say, this is not what you want to be doing. This is what you want to be doing, and here's why, right? Those things are difficult, because people will often not present the right problem to solve. We've all heard about organizations that jump on the bandwagon. We want to be agile, or do agile first. That's what they say. And you say, oh, fine, but why? Right? So without being confrontational, you're actually trying to find out what is really going on here. Like, what are their pain points really? Not what they're saying, but what are they? And then making them realize that what they're saying isn't what they want to be doing. And then relaying the message onto them about what they really should be doing based on, again, their mission, their values. Those traits are what makes you an enterprise coach. Enterprise coaches, I'll tell you, they fall flat on their faces an awful lot, because think about who you're dealing with. You're dealing with these people, the CXOs, I'll call them, right? They got to those positions by typically being a certain type of personality. Type A, type AA, whatever it is. And so when they ask for something and you're saying, well, no, that's not quite what you want, right? That's a tough conversation. And so 9 times out of 10, initially, you're going to get beat up. And they're going to say, well, no, I think I know what I'm doing. Right? If you're not going to help me, your successor will.
You're going to get beat up.
Right?
You're going to get beat up a lot.
I've had that conversation. Right?
You're going to lose a lot of arguments. That's for certain.
And so this is where you need to tread carefully and say, I see what you're saying. However, it's just not making sense to me. Explain to me how you arrive at this as your ask based on these things being your values. And they may still not move, and that's okay. Right? You cannot change people if they don't want to change. That's the other thing. So when you're an enterprise coach, you get to a realization where not every client should be your client. Not every client will change. And indeed, at points, you may have to just say, I can't help you. Right? You need somebody else.
Like, oh, man, you just hit on something that could be a whole podcast by itself. Like, well, like coming to the end of the road to say you can't be fixed. Like you like man, yeah, that's a whole podcast. Like there are some things that just end with like, this is not a process problem or whatever. Like sometimes people just like have personality problems. You can't solve like, you're not a psychologist. You can't solve everyone's personality problems. So,
right.
You're your own worst. I've been in many organizations where I run into people that are their own worst enemy. I've been my own worst enemy in places. Like, and you can't force somebody to understand that they're the ones that need to change. They need to come to the realization themselves.
Absolutely. And that is tough. I mean, initially what you would do is just simply move it away from them as people. Like,
yeah.
It's usually a person that you're dealing with, to the wrong problem, right? So that's where you'd say, well, you say this, but really, isn't this this other thing the problem you're trying to solve? Let me explain to you how solving this problem over here helps you, rather than what you're saying you want to solve.
Right.
Can we park that for a bit and come back to it, maybe?
Right. Yeah.
Right. But if they're adamant and they say, no, this is what I want, then you have to do one of two things. You have to either say, well, let them fail, which you wouldn't do, right? Or you say, we have to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not the right person to help you.
Yeah. Yeah, but there may be no right person to help them.
There may not be, yes, absolutely. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay, because you've done what you can.
Yeah, that's like, there's people out there that are probably like, I was this person at one point in my career. I was like, that's not beneficial to me. Like, this conversation doesn't help me at all.
This reminds me of a little anecdote. When I was working in the Middle East, I came across this scenario. I was out at lunchtime, middle of the day, and there was an old lady waiting to cross the street.
Yeah.
And a few times the lights change and she is not crossing the street. She's just waiting. And I'm thinking, this poor lady. So I go up to her, take her by the arm, go, let me help you. So we wait, and then I cross the street, get to the other side. Well, turns out she never wanted to cross the street in the first place. I don't know what she was doing there, but when we got there, that's when she turned to me and she said she was angry at me. She's like, "Ugh." She wanted to be at the other side, and we couldn't communicate the different languages. But I'm like, okay, well, I'll move you back over there then, right? So why I bring this up is, if they don't want to move, you're not going to move them.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought she wanted to cross the street, but that was the last time I
man.
assumed anything. Now I would ask, at least.
Well, this was a fun topic.
It was a fun topic. I enjoyed that topic. That was a good one.
Career progression. Like, not sure we helped anyone, but that's what we're about here, which is not being sure if we helped anyone.
If we did, subscribe below.
If we did, Agile Podcast Questions at Gmail. Tell me that we helped.
Give us that thumbs up.
And if we didn't, Agile Podcast Questions at Gmail.
If we didn't, then this has been worth every penny you've paid for.
That is absolutely true.